Hello everyone, quick one from me. I just want to say thank you very much for everybody that's tuned in over the last couple of years. I think we're on episode 82, 83 right now at this time, and the show couldn't be where it is without all your support, so thank you so much. Excited to release a number of episodes that are coming up, so please do tune in, and if you haven't already subscribed, we do have a YouTube channel, so please go on there, watch some of the episodes, and anyone that we've spoken to that you think might add value to your network or you want to maybe be introduced to, please reach out to me. My email is callum@cordellbeaumont.com, or just send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll be glad to connect you. Thanks a lot. Hello everyone, welcome back to Maritime SoftwareHub, the People Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Andrew Balfour, the founder of TidalIQ. And we're going to be talking about his journey from being a seafarer into kind of moving and starting up his own technology business. So Andrew, welcome to the show. I'd love it if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Andrew, founder of TidalIQ, and hoping to kind of continue building the software to make life easier for kind of emissions regulations and handling and managing those. So, yeah, that's kind of brief intro of what I am doing.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so I mean, what kind of brought you? Can you tell us a little bit about your early part of your career and perhaps what's kind of got you to this point today?
Yeah, so I started straight from school into kind of nautical college and a cadet, sailing on tankers, and then kind of moved into kind of sailing on gas carriers and LNG around the world. And it went from there, decided that being at sea itself wasn't necessarily the future, starting a family and all the rest. So I moved into a management role at Norfolk, and that kind of allowed me to see both sides of it. I mean, it's interesting. Moving from sea to shore is pretty difficult. It's a interesting transition. But yeah, allowed me to see kind of both sides and have that kind of good perspective of both. And yeah, that's kind of where all of this started. I was then managing more commercial side of things and regulations, and kind of built TidalIQ to what it is today. So yeah.
Brilliant. Great. We'll dive into a bit more about TidalIQ shortly. But when
sure.
you were kind of at sea, what just out of interest, what kind of voyages were you doing, and how long roughly were you kind of away offshore?
Yeah. So I mean, voyages all around the world. There was no kind of fixed routes. Sailed everywhere. And typically I was away for 3 to 5 months, and then home for a couple of months at a time. So, yeah.
Wow. And how often? I mean, this is just out purely for my own benefit. But when you call into port, do you often get 2 or 3 days to spend some time there, or is it just literally load, discharge, kind of turn around type of thing?
Yeah. In some vessels you do. In my experience, it was kind of 24 hours in and out. So that meant that there wasn't a huge amount of time to go ashore. You kind of when you factor in working, eating, sleeping, often, and then LNG ports are, not in the middle of the city, so you're maybe an hour taxi into the nearest town or city, and then you've got to get back. So it's not a huge amount of enjoyment of this kind of they sell you the dream of sailing around the world and seeing the world, but you see the LNG terminals of the world and slightly different.
Okay. Understood. Okay, and I guess if you look back to your time at sea then, and maybe if we then kind of compare it to now, what was your view of kind of technology during those times when you were on board the vessels compared to where you think it is now, roughly?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because on board, I mean, there's obviously so much technology, and there is kind of life is on the bridge or engine room or whatever that is kind of your life. The technology is your life, and when that fails, then the whole kind of system fails. Moving ashore is different, and I think you probably come on to it a little bit more, but the kind of mindset that I've tried to breed into TidalIQ is that everyone just wants a little bit easier life, right? So if you've got technology that's on board or ashore or whatever that is, it has to be kind of worth having. And that's kind of what I've tried to keep building with, because there's so many things that are kind of overloading everyone. So it's finding that balance where what you're building or what you're kind of introducing is actually beneficial to people.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, brilliant. And I guess obviously the whole underriding element is the connectivity piece, and then being able to use the technology and obviously remain in touch with kind of shore. There's obviously a huge aspect. So
yeah, I mean that's come a long way.
okay,
I mean, internet connectivity, even when I started, it's come a long way.
Yeah, no, good. Okay, well, let's look now then where you are at TidalIQ. Like, can you give us a bit of an overview of the platform you're building and kind of what kind of drove your sort of your thought process behind setting up the company?
Yeah, so TidalIQ is effectively a marketplace for FuelEU pooling, and it was born out of, like I said, I was using various different kind of platforms and software to manage compliance, and with that I kind of realized that the whole setup at the moment is it kind of makes it more difficult. You know, owners, managers, they have so much on their plate already, so why are we adding 4, 5, 6 platforms to try and make their life easier? So the kind of concept of it is take the verified data and allow you to pool if that's what kind of the right thing to do is, and have it all kind of in one place, have it all on one platform. We that from the verifier, from the data companies, from the pools, kind of collate that into one useful software that people can, just make life easier, rather than spending 10 hours a week doing it. There's half an hour should manage. So that's like I said, it's everyone's got so much on their plates that it doesn't make sense to try and do it in a way where they have to log into 3, 4, 5, 6 platforms, redo the same data or recheck the same data. TidalIQ is built to make that easier and make life easier for pooling. And let's see what comes in the future.
Yeah, so if we just maybe take a step back in terms of, in layman's terms, I'd love it if you could, partly for my benefit, but like also just for our listeners that may not be kind of as kind of clued up or like following things in the mission space. Can you just give a quick overview of, so you say like you regard to pooling, compliance, what type of, so in a day-to-day world, can you just shape the context for that? So is it from whether certain vessels are going into certain ports, they have to have certain things in place, or anything else in particular?
Yeah, so I mean it's a regulation set out by the EU, and it covers voyages to, from, or within the EU. Mm-hmm. So essentially, it's a way to drive towards net zero, and obviously shipping emissions are a huge part of that. So part of the regulation, it allows pooling, so you can offset your negative carbon credits with someone who has positive. So let's say you're running a 15, 20-year-old bulk carrier, and you're running it around Europe. You're going to come out the end of the year with a deficit if you're using kind of carbon fuels. You take the other side of that, and there's let's say ferries or LNG vessels who are burning clean fuels or LNG or biofuels or whatever that might be. You can offset the two off each other. So essentially, rather than paying the penalty for being in a deficit, you can offset your kind of bad fuel emissions with that of someone who's are good. And that's kind of,
Okay.
yeah, that's what it is, connecting that.
So in a way, I mean, is there an element of, almost like in the kind of freight forwarding, like option sort of space and the paper side of shipping, the derivatives markets, that sort of stuff? Is there now a kind of a carbon derivatives kind of trading arena? I think at Clarkson's we had that we were building that desk early on, but is that something
Mhm.
that kind of weaves into what you're involved with as well with TidalIQ, or is that slightly different?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's building that market for trading, and it's yeah, be it yeah, wherever you're trading now, kind of emissions is part of that. So it's yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, it's funny, just clicked. Sorry. Okay,
Yeah,
and then so your potential customers for you, they could be not just the sort of ship owners themselves, and what other sort of people, stakeholders would you be selling to as well? Do you think?
yeah. So it's a kind of broad spectrum, and yeah, you know, straight off the bat, the ship owners and ship managers are kind of the end user, the target clients. So they'll be the ones who are managing the compliance for their vessels. Um, that we then kind of take it up a level where platforms who are kind of managing the data side of things and presenting the data or tracking the data, um, we can partner with them and kind of
Yeah,
give them a marketplace to kind of do the next step. Um, Brokers and charters, everyone who's kind of along the line of shipping has to kind of deal with this at some point.
yeah,
So yeah, the owners and managers are kind of the key clients, but it doesn't stop there. The whole industry, it has to deal with this. So it's a bit of everything really.
excellent, great. So it sounds like you've got good opportunities, not just from the end users, but also to have partnerships with different vendors and technology businesses and brokers, as you say.
Yeah.
So fantastic. All right, good. And then I guess in terms of the growing kind of emissions regulation, what does that look like? Do you think for the ship owners themselves? How are they having to adjust and reshape their kind of strategy of either vessels they
Mm.
operate or routes they plan?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it goes without saying that this is obviously added a cost to global shipping. So where historically a voyage could go from, let's say, Houston to Rotterdam and carry on as normal, now that voyage would come with some sort of penalty or possibly a surplus. But it's it's shaping emissions into a commercial thing. So rather than it just being a discussion about, you know, targets and how your ships are performing, it's now being shaped into real money and it's affecting the bottom line of, you know, a charterer is now looking at the day rate in a different way because they have to add on the emissions side of things, or an
Really?
owner planning a voyage around or into or around Europe, um, is now considering which fuel is best to use in that space rather than it just being compliant fuel. It changes to, can we start making money by using compliant fuel? So the
Yeah,
whole kind of the whole thing around European voyages is changing to be much more commercial than it probably ever has been, and the costs associated with that are you know much more manageable. You can turn your vessel and kind of, yeah, if you've put money into, now a lot of owners are um, building vessels which are going to be kind of cleaner fuel and all the rest, but you've put money into building that and adapting your technology. You can kind of start to get some of that money back by like kind of selling that surplus. So it's changing what was once just emissions and targets, it's changing that into a much more commercial model.
And who receives the money from paying for these for the emissions and the credits and things? Who does the money go to?
Yeah. Well, so the kind of regulation is set where it's the EU ultimately who get the money from
Okay.
the deficit. But if you choose to pool, then the money goes to whoever's selling that surplus. So if you're let's take it back to kind of LNG vessel, clean vessel with a surplus, you sell that surplus and you get the money. You kind of take some of the reward for having a cleaner vessel. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Brilliant. Thank you. So I guess challenges then for adoption. Are there any key obstacles that you see ship owners or operators facing at the moment when it comes to kind of emissions management at the moment?
I mean, I think that without kind of stating the obvious commercial downside of it, I think the key difficulty for owners and managers is depends on the size. I think is a starting point. So the size of the owner and operator, it directly affects the effect that these regulations are having. So the largest corporations and companies around, they're able to hire their own team to deal with this and really kind of be on top of everything. Whereas the small to mid-size owners and managers, they're having to handle this on top of, crewing, class, budgets, owners, all the rest. So it's adding that extra workload onto companies that probably don't have the kind of facilities to hire a team and be on top of this. So it's just another thing piled on the desk. So I think from the way I see it is that's the biggest burden for the majority of the industry. It's having to deal with yet another thing. So that I think that's the most difficult side of things.
And if you were to sort of perhaps put into perspective in comparison of, I don't know, a ship owner's or operator's cost of bunkers for a voyage, what would you say the ratio is between sort of the bunker costs and then this emissions charge? Is it kind of like a fraction, 4 or 5% type of thing, or is it much larger?
In terms of if they were to choose cleaner fuels, do you mean?
I think if it's a regular, just a normal handy-sized vessel or running on normal bunkers, what would you say just for the average ship owner that hasn't yet transitioned over to using cleaner fuels? What is the cost looking like to them at the moment?
It is very difficult to say because it's not just a simple cost matter. It depends where your vessel's coming from and going to. So, and the availability of those fuels. So it's very difficult. If you had a vessel trading from Brazil to Europe, you're not going to be able to get the quantity of fuels in Brazil to bring you over. So it's not necessarily just a cost thing. Obviously it is, but it's also availability. It's still a very early market. You've then got to add in kind of approvals for changing fuel types and all the rest. So it's to not really skirt around your question, but it's not quite as simple as here's the X amount more or less. It's difficult.
I guess you'll get. I mean, I know there are tools, the voyage calculation tools that can add on the emission element per voyage type of thing. So that's quite and that those sort of things you'd perhaps integrate with as well.
Well, we've got at TidalIQ, we've got on our website there's a calculator, so you can put the voyage in and select all the different fuels and have a look at what that difference means. It doesn't kind of take into account the cost of the fuel to start with, but it at least gives you an idea of if we could change to this fuel, how would that affect that voyage? So yeah, that's available, and there's others.
Okay, excellent, good. Okay, well, yeah, I think we've obviously covered over a little bit around your sort of background and the kind of common or the reason really why you started the business. So, in terms of going forward, then, what's your journey been like as a founder? If you don't mind me asking, like, I know obviously I started my company, but in terms of in the tech world, has starting a technology business been kind of as you imagined it to be? Are there far more obstacles than you ever imagined, or are you finding
Yeah,
quite a lot of opportunities to kind of get help and get up and running?
yeah. I mean, truthfully speaking, I never had a vision of starting a kind of maritime technology company, and it just, yeah, it kind of came, and that's what it is. But I think it's incredibly difficult is a word. It's doing something that I've never done before, and it's entirely new for me. So starting the technology business, doing the kind of I don't know, you can have your vision and the way you see it going. That's not necessarily how it's going to go. I mean, TidalIQ has been kind of live as a business for just over a year, and the kind of vision and the way that I'm shaping the business now is changed. I don't know how many times since then. The kind of difficulty of a solo founder, so that's been challenging in the sense where you don't have someone to bounce ideas off of. So that's obviously comes with its difficulties. Um, and yeah, I think just generally, I don't want to fall into the kind of cliche that the maritime industry is not necessarily all that adaptive to change. Um, but there is part of that where you find a lot of people have settled on their way of doing things, and changing that mindset is not always the easiest. So yeah, I think it's been more difficult than I could have anticipated. But while saying that, I didn't really anticipate being here, so it's kind of hard to say. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's incredible, like what you've already achieved, and going and looking through the platform and everything. In terms of, you don't have to give away every detail, but in
Mm.
terms of how you went about building the platform, did you kind of hire sort of consultants to help with the tech, or did you
Mm.
outsource it? Can you just talk us through that sort of
Yeah.
process?
So originally, I had uh, kind of I'd looked at outsourcing and getting a third party developer on board. Um, and then just through probably more my impatience rather than anything else, I I decided that I wanted to get going and building things, and obviously the third party developers were charge you a pretty penny to do that. So I kind of got on and built it myself. So everything that's been built today is I've done it myself. So a lot of late nights on laptops, and
Hmm.
yeah, everything that's been built is been by me. So that's been a pretty interesting learning curve, and I would never have even imagined doing that even a year ago. So yeah, I've enjoyed it though. I've enjoyed having the control over kind of what that looks like, and what you know seeing what my vision is at the start and seeing that come to life has been very rewarding, to say the least.
Yeah, no, I think it's great what you've done up to this stage, and obviously going forward. Then, um, two parts to this question, I guess. What do you see, firstly, for Tidal IQ, the kind of next phase of growth being,
Hmm.
and then I might ask a bit more about the future of the emission sort of space. But in terms of the
Sure.
business, where do you feel like the next kind of like towards the end of the year, 2027, where do you think you'll be then?
Hmm. Um, yeah, interesting question. But I want to the kind of key at the moment is everything's been built, and I've spent a huge amount of time building this. Then now the next step is bringing it to the market, and um, not even just bringing it to clients, but really kind of stress testing it with everyone, and working out what can I add that will be more beneficial to people using it. That's like I've said all along, that's the key. I want to make this actually useful and not just another kind of burden.
Yeah.
So it's about developing useful features, bringing it to market, and kind of bringing in some key partners that, yeah, like I said, I want to connect. The kind of vision of TidalIQ is that we become the marketplace and the infrastructure for marketplace. So rather than just being another platform, the kind of vision is that we plug into all of the platforms and we become the marketplace. Yeah, easier said than done, but it is the next kind of few months or year is about that and building kind of solid partnerships and kind of collaborations with people who I believe can offer more for their clients, rather than it being purely, bringing clients into my platform. So it's kind of
Hmm.
multiple things.
Good. Okay, brilliant. And yeah, I mean, hopefully, if there's any way we can help, obviously, in the future, in terms of from what we're seeing from other founders, how they're shaping their go-to-market strategy, where they're hiring, what it looks like in terms of to those early sales hires and leaders, what are their backgrounds, how are they remunerated, that type of thing. Obviously, we can share insights around that. But no, I think
Yeah.
it sounds like a very exciting phase for you guys. And yeah, obviously, anything we can do to help, we'll be delighted to. In terms of
Yeah.
my second part of the question, in terms of where you think what's coming up in terms of changes for the emission sort of regulation space in
Mm.
general, is there any kind of anything you can share in that area?
Yeah, I think it's kind of up in the air at the moment. The IMO were kind of they've done net zero framework, and that's kind of trying to bring it in. Obviously, EU have their own thing, and the IMO is trying to look to bring in a kind of worldwide thing, which is facing a bit of kind of difficulty, and it's not been adopted. Um, and other countries, other places are looking to implement kind of similar strategies. The UK's just launched the UK ETS, and I'm sure they'll follow a kind of similar trajectory that the EU has, and other countries will do the same. Um, but I think the biggest thing, or the most interesting thing that I'm looking forward to is how the kind of strategies of companies and owners goes forward. So um, pooling is one thing but eventually in time it's going to have to be fuel related and kind of industry change, and it looks like that's the kind of push towards that, kind of changing the kind of entire shipping landscape. And as older vessels are replaced with newer vessels, we'll see a kind of much different fuel landscape, I think. So it's going to
Yeah,
be interesting to see what that looks like in time.
yeah, I agree. Good. All right then. So before we kind of move on to the last sort of section of questions I've got for you, is
Hmm.
there anything else you'd like to share about Tidal IQ? Obviously, and best way for people to reach out to you if they have any questions.
Yeah, so I mean the website's live, so yeah, Google or whatever, TidalIQ, and contact us. I mean, you can, yeah, a plug of my email, Andrew.Balfour at tidaliq.co.uk.
Excellent.
Um, and yeah, just get in touch if there's anything that kind of you think that we might be able to help you with, or even if you just want to kind of sense check your strategy or what you're doing now. I'm happy to help, and I've got some good partners so far in the industry. So if you tell me you paid X amount of euros per ton for your pool last year, I can sense check that and tell you, did you get a good deal, or can we do better for you next year? Um, and yeah, just reach out. I mean, I'm here to help, and I want to try to help every part. So yeah, there's various people that have helped me over the years, and I'll give a yeah. It's just reach out. I can try and do what I can limit your costs or try and shape your strategy in a better way for next year or this year or whenever.
Great. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, yeah, please do reach out to Andrew. We'll obviously share your kind of contacts and their website links in the notes for the episode. But just going back to the original theme for this episode is really from your background from kind of ship to tech, kind of starting up a business.
Mm.
So in terms of just generally speaking, other seafarers at the moment, do you find they're receptive and they enjoy the kind of the wave of technology coming in, or do you find it's a bit of a hindrance to their day-to-day life and work?
I think it depends entirely what it is. You know, it can be well received and it can hinder. You know, I think our industry is still quite yeah, go as far as to say outdated in terms of technology, where you know you go on any ship and it's majority of them still using paper logbooks and checklists and printing out and all the rest. And if the technology is there that makes that a kind of an ease on people, you know, ECDIS is a great example where paper charts were hugely time consuming.
Mm.
I'm not saying that ECDIS isn't, but it created a lot of kind of benefit for the industry. And now if you were looking back at asking someone to do a full portfolio paper charts, I mean, they roll their eyes. But it's about finding that balance of is that technology that's been implemented actually going to save them any time or any kind of effort and make their life easier? Because yeah, we all know that seafarers, I've touched on it, didn't get a huge amount of time ashore, but that's all part of it. It's about, you know, these are people that at the end of the day that are living in a very stressful environment. Can we make their life a bit easier? I think that should be on everyone's mind when they're creating something. Yeah.
Okay. And when are they typically, or when are you trained really in the technology? Is it prior to a voyage, or is it literally on the job? And who is perhaps doing that or the training?
Yeah, again, I think it depends. For the most part in the industry, we all go to college and there's various courses that you have to kind of do along the way. And yeah, there's a lot of options for who to go to and train with. But generally speaking, you get the kind of basics at college or wherever that is. But then you learn how to actually use it when you're on board doing it. I think that's the key of all of this is,
Hmm.
you know, I can sit here and tell you that some technology is the best thing in the world. Until you've used it, you don't really know. So it's about using the product and giving it a test and kind of going from there, I think.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really good point there. I think a lot of businesses that we've recruited for over the years or just partner with, part of their go-to-market strategy is actually kind of collaborating with the colleges and the universities. And so that way people kind of come up learning and using their top technology. Companies like, for example, like Napa, on their 3D kind of CAD design software and things. So it really
Yeah.
gets that buy-in from an early age or early stage. So I think it's a really good point about how people are familiarizing themselves with technology even before they get on board the ship, which is
Yeah.
great.
I mean, I think generally, again, you look at the seafarers that will be coming through now. I mean, in life as a whole, we're all much more kind of tech savvy than ever before, and I think that can only help the industry. I mean, there's people like me sitting wondering, you know, there's a better thing there. Maybe because we have the knowledge of what it could be, then there's more likely for people to have a go at it, rather than kind of just rest on this is what's there, so we'll use it.
And big kind of final question for you. obviously British, like seafaring in the British sort of, in Britain in particular, do you still think it's an attractive career opportunity for youngsters coming up, or is it becoming more challenging?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons, and I think you have to. My advice to anyone that I've spoken to who's kind of thinking of going into the maritime industry, I think you have to be sure that that's what you want to do. There's no kind of hiding away from the fact that if you're away for up to 6 months at a time, you might not be, best friends with the guys that are on board, and it's not an easy environment to live and work in. So it can be a tough place. So if you want to do it, that's great, but you need to kind of be sure that you want to, that you want to commit to it. And I think as an industry, it's an incredibly rewarding industry. I don't know many that are like it, where the kind of scope for what you can do is pretty unlimited if you go from kind of cadet all the way through to whatever you want to be. It's a fantastic building block for doing something else. I mean, there's a lot of days where I think not so much. And there was a lot of days at sea where I thought, God, what am I doing here? But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's you're never going to have a bad thing to experience if you go and kind of go to sea or get into shipping. You can fairly easily pivot into something else, and there's be it at sea, training, lecturing, management, brokering, whatever else. There's a million different kind of niches of the industry. So I think it's an incredibly rewarding industry to be in.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you so much. Okay, Andrew. All right. Well, yeah, I really appreciate you giving us that kind of run through of your experience in particular is super interesting. And then obviously what you're building now at TidalIQ. So please, everyone, please do reach out to Andrew if you have any questions or want to sort of learn more about the platform. But for now, thank you for everyone for tuning in. It's great to be back kind of speaking to our network and our founders. And I hope you found this conversation useful. So take care and speak again soon. All right, thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks.